Speaking of, the Republicans snuck a poison pill into their funding bill that would have continued the government's censorship center. Incredible. Something called the Global Engagement Center. You've heard Mike Benz on this program talking about it. It is truly evil and censorious. I can't believe Republicans would backstab us like that, but ladies and gentlemen, it's time to hold their feet to the fire and stiffen their spine, put gunpowder in their guts, and give them a set of balls in their shorts. There's been one man who's been doing that work, ladies and gentlemen. It's the great Mike Davis. Mike Davis, ladies and gentlemen, has been on this program day and night and day, talking about Fani Willis and the disqualification of Fani Willis and why the lawsuit that she brought against Donald Trump, the case she brought against Donald Trump in Georgia, it was complete and total hot garbage. Mike Davis has made many, many double entendres on this program and has turned, red, cherry red with laughter, talking about how absurd Big Fani is and her lover boy, Nathan Wade. And now, ladies and gentlemen, I wish to bring you tidings of great joy to talk through this disqualification. Right now, the great Mike Davis joins the program live. Oh, Mike. Oh, Michael. Oh, what a glorious Christmas morn this is. I doubt that you will be mourning for Fani Willis, but maybe you can start with the top line here, Mike, and talk through this disqualification from the Georgia Appeals Court that just hit a couple minutes ago. I assume that you agree.
Yeah, it's a pretty simple case. Fani Willis hired her dumb, unqualified boyfriend, Nathan Wade. She paid him $250 an hour, $700,000 in Fulton County funds to bring a RICO case against President Trump and 18 others for the non-crime of objecting to a presidential election, which is allowed by the Electoral Count Act of 1887 and the First Amendment. And if that's not a big enough problem that she hired her secret boyfriend, she also took illegal kickbacks from her dumb, unqualified boyfriend in the form of lavish trips around the world. Poor Nathan had to take Fani Willis to Belize and the Caribbean and Napa, all over the world. Remember, Fani Willis testified that she's a Grey Goose girl. She is a high-class woman. I was going to use another word, but I'll get in trouble on your show. So she took these illegal kickbacks, which means that she has a financial stake in the case. You're paying someone to handle your prosecution in your office, and then you're taking money in return. Not only does that disqualify you from the case, it disqualifies the entire office from the case, and it's also very serious criminal violations, like, for example, federal honest services fraud, maybe bribery, maybe other statutes. And so when Fani Willis got called into this Georgia trial court to answer for this, remember, she lied about it. She said, oh, no. We went Dutch to Napa and Belize and the Caribbean. Because my Black Panther father taught me to keep a bunch of cash laying around the house like I'm a drug dealer or hoe. And what she would do, she said in court, is she would pay back Fani Willis cash on these trips. Well, guess what? She didn't have any receipts. She had no evidence of that. And she didn't have any evidence that after she paid thousands of dollars to Nathan Wade for these trips, how she would replenish that cash so she could have that cash reserve that her Black Panther father wanted her to have in her mattress at home, right? And so that's a problem.
Where she lays her head. Where she lays her head.
And
not
Nathan
home,
Wade lays his
where
head
she
too.
lays her head.
So,
That's right.
Yeah, apparently. Well, I don't actually. Maybe Nathan doesn't stay over. He just comes over and does the deed and takes off. But I would say this. So we had this Scott McAfee, this judge in Georgia, appointed by Kemp in Fulton County, Georgia. He kind of wimped out on this. He said, "Oh no. This is a problem, but you guys can decide. Either Nathan Wade can get off the case or Fani Willis can get off the case." Well, that's not how the law works. And that's what the Georgia Court of Appeals just reversed. When you have a corrupted head of the office like Fani Willis, the elected DA for Fulton County, the entire office is infected with that corruption, with that conflict of interest. And so the entire office has to go. The entire office has to get disqualified. That's exactly what the Georgia Court of Appeals did, disqualified the entire office, the Fulton County office. And now what needs to happen is that if another prosecutor in Georgia wants to bring these charges again, that prosecutor can look at that. But this case is such a dog that no one would bring this case except for Fani Willis because she's corrupt and she was making money off of it. So my strong sense is this Georgia RICO case is gone forever.
So the case may be gone forever, this case, but there may be new cases. What we've learned throughout this trial is not only malfeasance inside of the office, but also outside. Nathan Wade went to the White House and billed the taxpayers of Georgia for that. He lied. He coordinated with the White House, and Fani Willis did as well. Fani Willis coordinated with the January 6th committee. He coordinated with Liz Cheney. We know this because we have the travel receipts and we have the security logs from the White House. The Secret Service said she went. And so they've lied multiple times about this. Mike, what kind of legal jeopardy is Fani Willis and Nathan Wade in now because of this scam?
Tremendous. And I would say this, remember, Nathan Wade billed for 16 hours, $250 an hour, $4,000 for his two meetings with the Biden White House, including the Biden White House counsel. Well, they had to have been coordinating on this Trump case in Georgia because otherwise he would not have been able to bill his time if they weren't coordinating on the Trump case. And so they coordinated with the Biden White House before Fani Willis brought her indictment down in Georgia. Look, Fani Willis and Nathan Wade are going to have a lot of problems on their own. State and federal fraud charges, corruption charges, bribery charges. Separate from that, there is an obvious criminal conspiracy among the Biden White House, the Biden Justice Department, Fani Willis's office in Georgia, Tish James' office in New York, Alvin Bragg's office in New York City, Chris May's office in Arizona, many other offices around where you have these government officials conspiring amongst themselves along with private actors like Andrew Weissman, for example, to politicize and weaponize intelligencies and law enforcement against political enemies. And that is a very definition of a criminal conspiracy against rights under 18 USC Section 241. And the Biden Justice Department's very familiar with 18 USC Section 241. It's one of the four charges that Jack Smith and Jay Bratt and the other special counsel operatives, Democrat operatives, brought against President Trump in D.C. for the non-crime of objecting to a presidential election on January 6th. And so I would suggest to Fani Willis and Nathan Wade and Tish James and Alvin Bragg and Matthew Colangelo and Jay Bratt and Jack Smith and even judges like Engeron and so many others who are bad actors, I would suggest that they lawyer up, because I imagine that the Trump 47 Justice Department is going to open a criminal probe, maybe even a special grand jury down in Fort Pierce, Florida, on this criminal conspiracy against rights, a very serious federal civil rights felony. We don't live in a third world Marxist hellhole. We don't throw our political opponents in prison for the rest of their lives for non-crimes. We don't try to bankrupt them for non-fraud. We don't try to throw them off the ballots illegally, unconstitutionally, like they did in Colorado and Maine and elsewhere. We don't try to get our political opponent killed by underfunding his Secret Service protection and then going out and giving speeches how President Trump is the biggest threat to American democracy ever and comparing him to Hitler. That's not going to fly. And so starting on January 20th at noon, I'm going to push very forcefully and daily to make sure that there is accountability for this. There must be severe legal, political, and financial consequences. And I would say to Fani Willis down in Georgia and her dumb, unqualified boyfriend, Nathan Wade, lawyer up, couple, because I imagine that the wrath of the Justice Department is coming.
Mike, that was like a gladiator scorched earth speech before battle. It was it was chilling. It was beautiful, actually, to listen to. Have you been practicing that in the mirror? Actually, you've been practicing that on this show for the better part of the last 3 years. You've been right on this topic. And so now I got to ask you about the future. Do you think that Fani Willis may be facing disbarment or jail?
She should face both. She is obviously corrupt. Her office just got disqualified because of her corruption. The state of Georgia should bring state fraud and corruption charges, and the feds need to bring federal fraud and corruption charges in addition to the criminal conspiracy against rights. And you have to ask this question of Merrick Garland, who says that nobody's above the law. Where the hell is the criminal probe of Fani Willis and Nathan Wade? And maybe they don't want to bring this criminal probe because it ties directly to the Biden White House, including Biden White House counsel's office. Nathan Wade had 2 meetings, again, $4,000 worth of his time billed to Fulton County taxpayers, 16 hours for his 2 meetings. Maybe that's why Merrick Garland is protecting Joe Biden and Joe Biden's White House again.
Yeah. So how would you advise the Justice Department? You are outside. You're at the Article 3 Project. We freaking love the Article 3 Project. Do a big shout out to them every single show. Okay. Mike runs that. It's the best legal authority in the country. And I want to ask about Liz Cheney, but very quickly, one more question on Fani Willis. How would you advise the Justice Department to move forward? Is this a special counsel operation? Like, let's say you were asked, is this a special counsel operation? Is this like a special prosecutor, Mike? Is it how would you make sure, taking a step back and not bringing any names into this, how do you make sure that this is so scorched earth, so salted of the earth, that it never happens to anyone again, Republican or Democrat? Because I think that's actually what we want here, frankly.
I think it's pretty easy. You just have the public integrity section team up with the U.S. attorney for the Northern District of Georgia, and you get a grand jury indictment, and you bring these fraud and corruption charges. It's a very simple case. She was taking illegal kickbacks with Fulton County funds. This is honest services fraud. This is bribery. There are so many potential charges that the Biden Justice Department could bring and should bring, but the whole Justice Department is corrupted. And that's going to be, I imagine that will be part of the investigation by the Trump 47 Justice Department is why didn't these federal prosecutors and these federal agents bring these charges or even recommend these charges? And there has to be a house cleaning. Apparently there needs to be a house cleaning in the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Northern District of Georgia, as well as the Southern District of New York and D.C. and many other places.
Georgia's a firm red state. It's getting redder. Georgia's going to go the way of Florida, I believe, in the next election cycle, where it's going to be completely and totally out of reach for Democrats. And I really look forward to some justice there. Zooming out a bit, somebody aforementioned, Liz Cheney, clearly Fani Willis met with the receipts show that Fani Willis met with the January 6th committee. Liz Cheney is in hot water, and you says Liz Cheney needs to retain her documents and get legal counsel immediately this week based on other illegalities about witness tampering with Cassidy Hutchinson and so forth. Can you please explain that, Mike? What legal problems is Liz Cheney facing right now?
Well, there's pretty smoking gun evidence in the form of text messages where Liz Cheney is working with Cassidy Hutchinson and maybe Alyssa Farrell to change Cassidy Hutchinson's sworn testimony to Congress. And if that ends up being true, that is perjury, subornation of perjury, obstruction of justice, witness tampering, conspiracy. Liz Cheney is better lawyer up, and I don't think her daddy's going to be able to save her on this one.
Maybe her punishment could just be going hunting with her dad. You know, maybe that could just be you have to go pheasant hunting with Dick, right?
Boy. Oh boy!
Just a thought.
I thought we got through the whole show, Ben, without causing controversy, and now Media Matters. There it is for Media Matters. I can write the headline for it. It's Ben this time. It's not me.
Made that joke many times. Okay. All right. So, really quickly, Mike, here, I know we're up against a hard out, and we appreciate your time. Since you have made many alliterations on this program about Big Fani. We've made some AIs for your viewing pleasure. This is something that actually, I don't know if they're AIs. I think this might actually be a shot from inside the courthouse this morning. Donald Trump with Fani Willis and with a spanking paddle. It seems like Fani, in the words of our president, Fani like your ass. Again, I'm just quoting Donald Trump here. Fani like your ass. It seems like Donald Trump is going to get the last hard spanking here.
Yeah, I mean, when I commented about another behind of another prosecutor, Tish James, I made headlines and got into a little bit of hot water. So I have to take the word big out of my vocabulary today.
Not as hot as the water at the Bahamas resort that Nathan Wade and Fani Willis were staying at on the taxpayer dime. Mike, we're really, really thankful for your fight in this. It's been so important to note to everyone, and we tell this to anyone who will listen, and I just want to say it as a final shout out. There were times, entire seasons, months that would go by where no one would come on and defend Trump. I'm not gonna shame people yet. I will eventually. But we're members of Congress, and everyone refused us and said we won't go on and defend Trump. We're too scared. They're cowards. And Mike was a real one. Mike would always say yes if he could, along with Kash Patel and Alina Habba. And that's it. There were dark seasons when it was literally just Mike. And so chat, I just want you to shout out Mike. I just want you to thank Mike for being one of the real ones. If Donald Trump were to call me down to Mar-a-Lago and say, who are the loyal ones? That would be my list. Mike, Alina Habba, and Kash. Because our bookers know on this program how tough it was for literally months on end to get a guest to come on and defend Trump legally. It was very difficult. A lot of cowards out there.
And now Alina Habba's counselor to the president, and Kash Patel is going to be the FBI director, and Mike Davis is going to be the viceroy. It's going to be quite a four-year run.
If I may, Mike, in closing, as the last question here, may I give you just the floor to give some advice to Kash Patel, who's beloved by this audience. I know that you know him very well. You've worked with him. It looks like Kash Patel is rolling through DC right now. You know the Senate quite well. Some advice.
I would say that Kash, very quick. It's time to go into the FBI, Kash, and clean house. And so we have your back every step of the way. Thank you, Ben.
Thank you, Mike. Godspeed, sir.